Good afternoon and welcome to Smoky Valley Middle School's annual Veterans Day ceremony. We are here to recognize and celebrate the freedom that we enjoy due to our veterans' sacrifice and courage. We wish that we could be meeting on different circumstances, but felt the need to protect our veterans. We hope that you enjoy this program that we have put together today, and we will begin with the presentation of the flags and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand and join me in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now let's check in with some of our 8th graders who will tell us about the history of Veterans Day.
How Veterans Day was named. In 1921, an American soldier, his name known but to God, was buried on a Virginia hillside overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington. The Arlington National Cemetery burial site of this unknown World War I soldier became the personification of dignity and reverence for America's veterans. Similar ceremonies occurred earlier in England and France, where an unknown soldier was buried in each nation's highest place of honor. These memorial gestures all took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I hostilities at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. This day became known as Armistice Day.
Armistice Day officially received its name in America in 1926, and it became a national holiday in 1938. If World War I would have been the war to end all wars, November 11th might still be called Armistice Day. Shortly after the holiday was proclaimed, World War II broke out in Europe and shattered the dream. 16.5 million Americans took part, and 406,000 died. The families and friends of these dead longed for a way to honor their memory. In answer to the dilemma of how to pay tribute to those who had served in the latest Great War came in a proposal made by Representative Edwin K. Reeves of Kansas. Change Armistice Day to Veterans Day and make this an occasion to honor those who served America in all wars. President Eisenhower, in 1954, signed the bill proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day, and he called for Americans everywhere to rededicate themselves to the cause of peace.
Next, the 8th grade choir will be singing Freedom by Louise Brownsey and Marty Lund. You guys sounded amazing. Now let's join in to listen to our 8th graders and the essays that they have written what a veteran means to them.
What a veteran means to me. June 6, 1994. The landing craft doors opened at Normandy. Thousands of Allied forces were almost killed instantly as German forces rained fire upon them. Some jumped off the carrier, but their packs weighed them down and they soon drowned. Eventually some made it onto the beach and found cover behind objects. The Allied forces then began to move forward and forced Germany to fall back. This was known as D-Day. Every time I think about what it means to be a veteran, I picture D-Day in my mind and all the hardships and courage it must have taken to leave the carriers. To me, a veteran is daring, selfless, and persistent. First, a veteran is daring because they go far away from their families, knowing it might be a while before they see them again. Another reason why I think a veteran is daring is that they go out of their way to protect people that need their assistance. A third reason why a veteran is daring is they perform challenging assignments and training to get better for any time they might need to help in a crisis around the world. Second, a veteran is selfless because they put their lives on the line to defend our country, because they know it's up to them to keep our country out of danger. Another reason why a veteran is selfless is that they help people no matter the risk and don't look at people less fortunate any differently. A third reason why I think a veteran is selfless is that they would give their life to save people without hesitation. Third, a veteran is persistent. A veteran is persistent because they push through mental and physical pain. They understand that they might have harder things to come. A second reason why I think a veteran is persistent is that they never turn back when things get hard and never go back on their word. A third reason why a veteran is persistent is that they are always pushing themselves and always pursuing a goal. In conclusion, a veteran is daring because they go far away from their families, knowing it might be a long time before they see them again. Selfless because they put others' needs in front of their own. And persistent because they never turn back and face things head on. I am very thankful to all the veterans who have protected us and who have gone above and beyond for our country.
What a veteran is to me. Would you risk your own life for somebody else's freedom? Every single veteran has risked their life for our freedom. They see things that we could only imagine, and they have risked it all for us. To me, a veteran is selfless, strong, and honorable. First, a veteran is selfless because they are willing to sacrifice their life for our freedom. With that, they lose some of their own freedom. They have served our country with discipline and respect. They have had to leave their families and left their own lives to fight for ours. That's how they have shown they are selfless. Second, a veteran is strong both mentally and physically. They have had to train hard. They are mentally strong because they have witnessed real pain, only to have persevered through it all. Last, a veteran is honorable. What does honorable mean? It means someone who is willing to give their life for somebody else's. Someone who is willing to sacrifice everything for the freedom of others. They are hardworking and responsible. They have done a lot for this country, and that is very honorable. So would you risk your life for our country like a veteran? To be selfless and lose some of your freedom for somebody else's? To be strong while training hard, not knowing what may come next? Most of all, to be honorable, being able to do the right thing when it matters the most. To me, a veteran is selfless, strong, and honorable.
For over 200 years, brave men and women have sacrificed their lives for the protection of their country and to honor those who fought to create it. These courageous people are called veterans, and they are what we are here today to appreciate and honor. Veterans sacrifice many things in order to serve their country, including sometimes their own identity. The three most unmistakable attributes of a veteran is being selfless, intelligent, and most importantly, heroic. A veteran is selfless because of their willingness to sacrifice their life for the freedom of others. They devote themselves to the tasks that they are given and complete them to the best of their ability without complaining. Veterans also risk ever getting to see their loved ones again, so that other people don't have to take that risk either. These veterans leave to protect their country without ever knowing if they will come back, and that is why they are kind-hearted and selfless. Another characteristic of a veteran is being intelligent. They know how to solve problems without help or information. even when the concept is foreign. They also are very down to earth because of the things they've seen on the battlefield. They know that the whole world isn't just about them, and then the fact that they can grasp that is why they are intelligent. The intelligence of veterans goes beyond just knowing how to complete tasks, but it's their ability to open their eyes to the world and around them and see that they can make a difference for the better. The best word to describe a veteran is heroic. Everyone has their own hero, whether that is your parents, favorite author, or just a random stranger. All of these people have one thing in common, and that is that they use their abilities or talents to do good, and that is why the word heroic best describes a veteran. A veteran uses their skills as a trained soldier to protect the freedoms of everyone in their nation. Heroes are always defined as brave, and that is exactly what a veteran is, because it takes bravery to enlist in the military. Veterans are heroic, selfless, and intelligent, which is only a fraction of all the characteristics that make them the right people to serve our country. Veterans sacrifice so many things, including their lives, to protect the nation and its people. Because of this, we celebrate and honor them every year on November 11th, the day that World War I was declared to be over. Veterans all around the nation are appreciated and remembered on this day for their selfless actions and services. For over 200 years, intelligent and selfless soldiers have served as part of the armed forces, and they are the heroes of our country.
Thank you, Britton, Julia, and Cale. Now, our band will be playing the marches of the armed forces. We would like to thank and recognize any of you streaming in from Bethany Home, Riverview Estates, and anywhere else you may be. At this time, we would like to introduce the list of veterans that we have gathered during the National Anthem. We apologize for any of you that we may have missed, and we sincerely thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We cannot thank you enough for your service to us and our country. At this time, we typically have a guest speaker, but we thought we would do things a little differently this year and let some of our 8th graders share of some of our very own heroes in a tribute to the fallen soldiers.
Almost 20 years ago, a high school history teacher by the name of Bill Ferguson had his Vietnam class research 7 young men from our community who went off to fight in Vietnam that never returned home. On this Veterans Day, let us take the time to remember these brave young men whose names are etched forever in the history on the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C., and in the hearts of our community. Here are the stories of 7 brave young men who gave their life for our country.
John Carl Lindle was born on March 28, 1941. He is the son of Mr. and Mrs. Hugo Lindle and he had one sister, Karen. The Lindles' home was in Lindsborg, Kansas, where John spent most of his life. From a young age, John excelled in sports. In grade school, he played basketball, tennis, baseball, and participated in swimming. In high school, John continued with sports, lettering in tennis, basketball, and football, as well as being the quarterback. Besides sports, John did many other things. He was involved in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, as well as playing the trumpet. John always got top grades and was a part of NHS. Science became his favorite subject. He loved studying chemistry and biology. After high school, John went on to Bethany College, where he remained for 2 years. While there, he played on the tennis team. It was during John's college years that he decided to join the military. He had known for a long time that he wanted to do everything he could to serve his God and country. John looked forward to starting his military career and never uttered a word of complaint. He was appointed to the U.S. Naval Academy in Indianapolis, Maryland, in 1961 and began his training. Every summer, John had 2 to 3 weeks to travel home. He also used his time to broaden his studies, learning about naval aviation one summer and nuclear power the next. John also played on the Navy's varsity tennis team, earning him a Navy letter for his achievements. In February of 1967, John received his Navy wings and began his aviation career. He joined Attack Squadron 56 and flew an A-7 Corsair attack bomber. John made 3 tours to Vietnam, 2 with the USS Kitty Hawk and 1 with the USS Midway. Then on January 6, 1973, his plane crashed following a launch from the Midway in the Gulf of Tonkin. He tried to eject, but something went wrong and he went down with his plane. His body was never found. Overall, John flew 325 missions in Vietnam. He never criticized the government for what was happening there, and he never complained. He knew he had a duty to do, and he did it. John was well-liked by many people, and his family received hundreds of cards after his death commenting on what a wonderful person he was. At a memorial service on the Midway, John's commanding officer made this comment. John was a class act. He was a professional officer as well as a pilot. I called him a gentleman's gentleman. I can think of no better expression of John and his character. 2 other memorial services were held, one at the Naval Air Station Chapel and one at his home church, Bethany Lutheran, in Lynchburg, Kansas. At the time of John's death, he was married and had a 15-month-old daughter. In the early war, John accepted the fact that he could lose his life. In one of the lost conversations he had with his mother, he affirmed that conviction, stating, "If the Lord wants me, he will take me."
David Lee Craig was born August 24, 1947, the son of Jeanette and Ralph Craig. He was an active boy who loved scouting, bowling, and being with his brother, James. He also enjoyed playing football, even though he was small in stature. David, unlike most boys, spent a good deal of time in the kitchen because of his fondness for cooking. A good example of this is when he was in junior high, his mother and other family members were looking for him after Sunday school one weekend and finally found him at home. He had cooked Sunday dinner, fried chicken. David was a member of Messiah Lutheran Church, where he was confirmed. He attended school in Lynchburg, graduating in 1965. School was never much to David's liking, even though he was very intelligent. After graduation, he knew he did not really want to go to college. David, however, did look at a few. In March of 1966, he enlisted in the United States Navy. He went through boot camp in San Diego and the Naval Hospital Corps School, also located in San Diego. David then went to serve at the Marine Recruit Training Depot there before graduating from the Field Medical Service School in Camp Pelton, California. By that time, David was a corpsman. This was something about which he was very excited for. To put his training to work, Corpsman Craig volunteered for duty in Vietnam. David left the U.S. on May 3, 1967, and was killed while tending wounded May 15th. David was only on Earth 19 years, 8 months, and 21 days, but his sacrifice has not been forgotten. In 1995, former Marine Corps shepherds took part in a 400-mile run in the Minnesota to help bring attention to the new war memorials being established to honor the corpsmen and medics from all wars who saved lives and sometimes at the expense of their very own. The historic run harkened back to the firefight of Vietnam in 1967, when Marine shepherds called for the corpsman David Craig to assist a wounded Marine, William Wesh, whom Shepherds was shielding with his body. Craig came to their aid and was mortally wounded in the chest. Shepherds was wounded in both feet later in the day, but both he and Wesh survived. On his run, Shepherds carried an American flag and a POW-MIA flag. When he arrived at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center, the ending point of his run, he presented the American flag he had been carrying to David's mother, Jeanette, who had been invited to the ceremony. Also attending was William Wesh, the wounded Marine who Shepherds and Craig had given aid to on that fateful day in 1967. It was a tremendous honor for Jeanette. David had made enough of an impression on these people that he knew for such a short time during his young life. To go to all the effort and time to honor David and others who had survived in the similar capacity was very humbling for her. It was only fitting that the men who did their duty to the best of their ability cannot be forgotten. These men are truly heroes.
In trying to find information about Larry Baxter, our group struggled a great deal. Not one person contacted us about him. His information file that is to be kept by the school district was nowhere to be found. It was thought that the name itself was wrong, and we were about to give up, when by chance this was mentioned to a Lynchburg High graduate of 1965, Gene Ferguson, and he stated, "There was a Larry Baxter. Stan Dalston and I used to give him a ride to school all the time. He went on to say that Larry had moved away after his freshman year at LHS. On the wall, you will find more than one Baxter. There was a Larry L. Baxter from Pierce City, Missouri, who had joined the Army in 1969 at the age of 21. He died in May of that year. Calls were made to the Pierce City School District, but no information was found nor received. The story of Larry Baxter is one reason why the project needed to be undertaken. A young man gave his life in a very controversial war, and no one remembers him. Nothing about his life is known by anyone. This is a travesty. To not be aware of him and his sacrifice means that we as a community don't care or aren't interested in what happened before us. None of us living today would want to be a Larry Baxter. To have died in the service of your country, and probably other than immediate family and those who served with him, no one seems to care today. It is our hope that through this project and the memorial we plan to establish on our school's campus, this will no longer be the case.
James J. Strobel, known as Jimmy John by many, was your typical Midwestern boy in almost every way. He helped do farm work, loved dogs, and had a girlfriend. He also was involved in many other things. People were drawn to him. He made friends very easily, and it was easy for him to get along with others. Jimmy John liked school and seemed to excel at math. He was a very well-rounded student who displayed a lot of self-discipline. He was a loving son who was very protective of his mother. In his early teens, Jimmy John moved from Lynchburg to California. After high school, he joined the Marines. Their sense of discipline appealed to him, and he thoroughly enjoyed being a part of that segment of the armed forces. It was said he probably would have ended up being a lifer. Jimmy John went to Vietnam in the fall of 1968. This was a turbulent time in America, after the Tet Offensive protests against the war became rampant. Vietnam and American involvement in the conflict was a key issue of the 1968 presidential campaign. It was obvious the war was dividing the country. What was happening back in America bothered him. No one seemed to care about those who were fighting over in the war. He was disgusted by those who were trying to avoid it, just so they could have a good time. Jimmy John continued to serve through, to the best of his ability. At the time of his death, Jimmy John was what they called in Nam short, which meant that he had less than 30 days left before his tour of duty was over. When a Marine is short, usually they could beg off going on patrol or performing more dangerous duties. Jimmy John did not. On November 9, 1969, while out on patrol along the jungle trail, a member of Jimmy John's platoon stepped on a mine and shrapnel from the explosion hit Jimmy John, killing him. Jimmy John's family back in Lynchburg was, of course, devastated by the news of his death. The town railed around them, though, to help them get through that horrible time. A sad footnote to all of this, which again shows how divided our country had become, was that the family, for a time, received anonymous calls from people. The calls told the family that Jimmy John deserved to die because it was an unjust war.
Richard V. Blackburn. Richard Blackburn was not born in Lynchburg, but spent much of his formative years here living with his great aunts, Eleanor and Ethel Palmquist, who lived near Bethany College. Aunt Ethel raised him like a son. Richard's brother Art would visit almost every summer and some holidays. As young children, they would play army, go swimming, ride bikes, and also chase trains. He was popular and had a certain charm. As an average-built guy, Richard was not extremely tall, but fast and strong. He was very competitive. Baseball was his best sport. He could play any position the coach wanted, and he was an excellent pitcher and hitter. Ethel was very proud of her nephew and kept all of his pictures and newspaper clippings. However, Richard's love for baseball faded as he reached his junior high years. At that time, Richard moved back to his home to live with his brothers and attended school with them. However, during the summer, Richard would come back and pick up right where he and his friends left off last. Before he left for Vietnam, Richard had to give up his dog. Two of his friends took the puppy in and named it Bogey. Later, Bogey would become a reminder of Richard. Richard volunteered for the Army Air Corps and became a helicopter gunner, and then volunteered for Vietnam. When the time came for him to ship out, Richard felt many mixed emotions. His family and friends were not sure why he was going or why he felt he had to.
because the war was controversial. Family and friends did not know how they were to react. His friend Cecilia said they just did not understand why Richard had to learn to kill. Family and friends realized that in Richard's mind, Vietnam was an honorable thing to do. His brother thinks that perhaps it was Richard's way of becoming independent, moving from childhood into manhood. Richard enlisted in 1969 at the age of 17. His mother was angry, but his father signed for him. As a helicopter gunner, Richard would ride with death every day. The longer he was in Vietnam, his dress got further and further away from the military code. His hair grew long, and he wore a peace sign on his headband. In January of 1971, Richard took an assignment and was tragically killed. He was then close to 19. Buried in Fort Snelling Military Cemetery in Minneapolis, Richard was received many awards. He was awarded the Bronze Star with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Army Air Medal, the Purple Heart, and several Vietnam service medals, all with full military honors.
The 24th of May, 1948 was a blessed day for the family of Victor and Faye Lindholm. The parents proudly named their baby boy Dan Victor Lindholm. Dan was a joy from the day he was born and continued to be so until the end of his young life. As a young child, Dan would entertain himself happily. He did not need someone's undivided attention. He would sit on the floor surrounded by his toys and be content for hours. That quiet little boy quickly turned into a happy young man. Dan loved to fish. It would not have been surprising to find the young man sitting on the bank, deep in thought. Fishing was a way for Dan to contemplate many things and maybe catch a fish or two. Much of Dan's values, discipline and responsibility, were established through his participation in Boy Scouts. Through the Boy Scouts, where his father was the troop leader, Dan experienced many things. Most important, the quality time spent between father and son. Dan was also fortunate enough to experience a world outside of Lynchburg, Kansas. He attended a camp in New Mexico many times, especially after he became an Eagle Scout. Achieving the highest rank in Scouts took much time and dedication. Once he had begun, Dan always finished what he had started to the best of his ability. Because Dan wanted to achieve excellence, he worked extremely hard in school and was an above-average student. Dan discovered he had a gift for art, and he loved it. To Dan, art was not just pen and paper, but wood and knife. Dan designed a wood carving that was printed on t-shirts for the intramural basketball team that he coached. Dan lived by the motto, treat others as you want to be treated. Dan practiced what he preached. That is why so many loved and respected him. For Dan, Sundays were not days of rest, but days of sandlot football with the guys. High school games were intense, but no more so than the Sunday afternoon rallies. Despite the exceedingly high amount of sandburrs contaminating the field, Dan and the guys returned each weekend for more battle wounds and victories. In 1966, Dan graduated from Lynchburg High School. Although Dan was an excellent student throughout his life, he was not sure that college should be his next step. Dan took up a job in the oil fields, but the job soon became monotonous. After packing up and leaving the oil business, Dan took a job at the plastic plant in McPherson, Kansas. Once again, Dan had become something he despised: bored. After many hours of thought, Dan enlisted in the United States Army. His first destination was a basic training camp in Fort Polk, Louisiana. As Christmas approached that year, Dan learned that he would be allowed to take a leave of absence and planned a trip home. Dan received a book that year, ironically entitled How to Survive Vietnam. Vietnam soon to be a very real place to Dan, for he had believed in what he was going there to do. He also knew that his family loved him and backed him 100%. To Dan, a year in Vietnam was not so long. Before Dan was shipped off to Vietnam, he was granted a leave to go home. He did not have long, but he and the guys got together anyway. The young group found themselves on top of Coronado Heights, and remained there until the early morning hours, talking and reminiscing. For Dan, it would be the last Kansas sunrise he would ever witness. Dan arrived in Vietnam on Sunday, March 3rd, 1968, and was assigned to the 25th Infantry Division. The Sundays full of football and sandburrs were over. The fighting and weather soon changed. Dan was confident that if the politicians in the United States would stay out of the way, the generals in Vietnam could end the war victoriously. He never lost faith, and he did not complain. Negative comments about the people of Vietnam were never expressed to his family at home. Dan believed that they were hardworking people just like everyone else. They were surviving the only way they knew how. On Sunday, September 8th, 1968, only 180 days remained before Dan would be allowed to come home. That was also the day Dan was assigned to the point. The road the group traveled was hot with Viet Cong traffic, and the platoon walked into an ambush. Dan, along with 16 other young men, were killed by small arms fire. Dan's body was found and recovered quickly at a place called Bien Duong in South Vietnam. Dan's body was allowed to be returned to the United States because of the speedy identification. Instead of choosing to bury Dan in the Arlington National Cemetery, the family chose to bring him home to Kansas. That act helped bring closer to the hearts of family and friends. When Dan was killed, the world lost a very brave young man, but he will always be remembered. Family and friends will never forget, nor will the United States. Dan's name is etched on the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. The young 20-year-old served his country to the best of his ability and died a hero in many hearts.
Before we end our program today, I would like to take a moment to thank a few people. I'd like to thank the American Legion, the Freedom Riders, Joe Hulse and Craig Marston, and our Booster Club. I would also like to thank our 8th grade staff and students for putting this program together today for you, and a special thank you to Tyler Brenneman for all the video help that he's done for this program. I'd also like to take a second to thank all of you, our veterans, for all of your service and courageous moments for us to be here today. At this time, I would also like to give our flower arrangement to Joe Hulse and the American Legion for helping us gather the list of veterans' names throughout our communities. At this time, we'll take a moment of silence as Taps is played.